Welcome to BeFrightened. We tell stories that will keep you up or help you sleep at night. The fluorescent glow of the store at night is oddly comforting. The endless aisles, usually bustling with shoppers, become eerily quiet during my shift. It's just me, some other colleagues, and the occasional insomniac customer wandering through the vastness of our 24-hour Walmart. This night feels different, though. There's something in the air that I can't quite explain. As I methodically restock the shelves in the home goods section, I feel that I'm being watched. I glance over my shoulder, expecting to see a late-night shopper, or maybe my supervisor, but there's no one there. Just rows of neatly arranged towels and shower curtains staring back at me. I try to brush it off, chalking it up to too much caffeine and too little sleep. But as the hours pass by, the sensation only intensifies. Every time I round a corner, I catch a glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision. When I turn to look, there's nothing there, just the endless sea of products and the sound of the overhead lights. I'm stacking soup cans in aisle 12 around 3 a.m. when I hear a thump behind me. Turning, I see a cereal box on the floor. I don't remember it being there before. I radio Ruben, my supervisor, to ask if anyone's in my section. He hasn't seen anyone, but reminds me customers could pop in any time. He asks if I'm okay. I say I'm fine, not wanting to make a fuss. As I pick up the cereal box, I notice a wet footprint on the floor. That's odd. I mopped here less than an hour ago. Looking around, I don't see anyone. The store feels too big suddenly. I consider radioing Ruben again, but hesitate. Maybe it's just a customer who came in from the rain. The lights flicker, then go out. Emergency lights come on, casting everything in a dim glow. That's when I see it. Someone moving between the aisles. I run towards the front of the store. As I pass electronics, someone grabs my arm. I yell. Turning, I see it's just Allison, another night worker, looking at me with concern. Then, a noise coming from the sporting goods section startles us. Allison and I investigate, finding someone crouched by a shelf, setting up something that I find out later to be a small camera pointed towards the main aisle. Allison shouts, and the person bolts. We chase them through the store. They're quick and seem to know the layout well. They knock over displays as they run. In the garden center, they topple a rack of plants. I slip on the wet soil but keep going. Just as we're closing in, they reach an emergency exit. The alarm blares as they push through. We follow them outside, but the parking lot is vast and dark. In the distance, a van's taillights disappear around a corner. The person is gone. We pause in the parking lot, processing what just happened. As I turn to go back inside, I spot a folder on the ground near where we lost sight of the van. I pick it up and open it under the parking lot lights. Inside are photos of me, lots of them. There's me at work, in the break room, walking to my car. Some are even taken through my apartment window. Each photo has a date and time written on it. There are notes, too, listing my schedule, my habits, and bits of conversations I've had with coworkers. The amount of detail is really unsettling. I show Allison, who looks as shocked as I feel. This isn't just random spying. This person, this stalker, has been watching me on purpose, carefully, for months. Knowing this makes me feel exposed. I hold the folder close, aware it's important proof, but hating what it means. We head back inside, both of us shaken by what we found. Allison, still catching her breath, asks if I have any idea who could be behind this. I shake my head, feeling a mix of fear and anger. Whoever this stalker is, they got away, but they've left behind clear evidence of their obsession with me. Explaining this to management, let alone the police, feels daunting. As we walk through the store to find a manager, something catches my eye. There's a small camera hidden behind some boxing gloves on a shelf in sporting goods. It's not one of ours. I know where all our security cameras are. This must be what that person was setting up when we caught them. Allison spots the camera too. We exchange a look, connecting the dots between this hidden device and the folder full of photos. This hidden device is just another piece of evidence showing how deep this stalking goes. The rest of the night's a mess of talking to cops and looking through security tapes. They find more hidden cameras all over, mostly where I work. The police search the area, but there's no sign of the van. All we have is the folder of photos and the hidden cameras as evidence. The stalker got away. Cops later said that the van was stolen, and they couldn't trace the equipment. I stuck around at Walmart for a bit, maybe 2 months, but eventually had to leave. Too many memories. The Walmart store was packed with weekend shoppers, and the noise from conversations and cash registers filled the air. I was working in the produce section, restocking the lettuce, when I noticed him for the first time. A small boy, no older than 5, stood alone by the apples. His eyes were wide with fear, darting around the store. Something about his demeanor made me anxious. I walked over slowly and crouched down to his level. I approached the boy and asked if he was lost. He nodded, his lower lip trembling, and quietly said that he couldn't find his dad. I reassured him that we'd find his father together and asked for a description. The boy's response sent a chill through me. He said the man was tall and wore a big black coat, but added that the man wasn't his real father and had told him to call him that. Alarm bells rang in my head. I tried to keep my voice calm as I asked more questions, but the boy's responses only deepened my unease. He didn't know the man's name or where they lived. He mentioned a long car ride and sleeping in different places. I felt a surge of panic. Was I dealing with a kidnapping? Should I alert security or call the police? As I wondered what to do next, I felt a presence behind me. A deep voice made me freeze. "There you are, son. I've been looking everywhere for you." I turned to see a tall man in a black coat, his face partially hidden by a baseball cap. The boy shrank back and pressed against my leg. The man's smile seemed forced as he reached for the child. The man thanked me for finding the boy, mentioning how he often wandered off. His tone was friendly, but something about it made me uneasy. I stood up slowly, placing myself between the man and the boy. I suggested we talk to store security, explaining that it was just to be safe. His demeanor changed instantly. The fake smile disappeared, replaced by a cold stare. He said it wasn't necessary and reached past me to grab the boy's arm. I reacted without thinking, shoving a display of apples toward him. Fruit rolled everywhere, creating a brief distraction. I grabbed the boy and ran, not sure if the man was actually his father, but unwilling to take any chances. The store felt like a maze as I sprinted through the aisles, the boy clinging tightly to me. I heard angry shouts and footsteps behind us. Shoppers stared in confusion as we rushed past, but I didn't have time to explain. I spotted the customer service desk ahead and headed straight for it. I shouted to my startled coworker behind the counter to call security and the police. Everything after that was a blur. Security guards appeared, blocking the exits. Police sirens wailed in the distance. The man in the black coat was nowhere to be seen. He had vanished into the chaos of the store. As I talked to the police, I noticed a kind-faced officer comforting the boy. My hands were shaking as I processed what had just happened. The officer asked the boy a few questions, and then radioed the station to check missing persons reports, trying to piece together his story. After some back and forth, they learned that the boy had been missing for weeks and was taken from a neighboring state. I felt a mix of relief and shock, realizing the gravity of the situation and how close the boy had come to being taken again. I can't forget the look in the boy's terrified eyes or the cold stare of the man in the black coat. As far as I know, they still haven't caught the kidnapper. When I'm in a crowded place, I catch myself scanning faces, half expecting to see that man again. The experience left me hypervigilant, always on edge in public. I think about the boy and know he's safe, hopefully finding peace and happiness with his real parents now. I can't forget how close it came to ending differently. A split-second decision in the fruit aisle at Walmart changed both of our lives. It's a reminder that danger can hide in the most ordinary places, and that trusting your instincts can be the difference between safety and something unthinkable. Working as a security guard at Walmart wasn't exactly thrilling, but it paid the bills. Most nights were uneventful, filled with routine patrols and the occasional shoplifter. But one night, everything changed, and my time there would eventually come to an end. It was a chilly evening, and the parking lot was almost empty. I was doing my usual rounds with a flashlight when I noticed something strange. A car parked far from the entrance with its headlights still on. It was an older sedan, kind you don't see much anymore. I approached cautiously. As I got closer, I noticed the driver's side door was slightly open, and my heart started to race. I called out to see if anyone was there, but there was no response. The silence was unsettling. I shone my flashlight into the car and saw it was empty. The seats were worn, and there was a faint smell of gasoline mixed with something metallic. I radioed Daniel, my supervisor, to let him know what was going on. He told me to check the car's registration and see if there were any clues. I opened the door fully, and the creak echoed in the stillness of the night. On the passenger seat, there was a purse with its contents scattered. A wallet, keys, and a phone with a cracked screen, all left behind. Something about the scene felt off, like someone was watching me from afar. I scanned the parking lot, but it was empty except for a few distant cars. I decided to check the trunk, hoping to find some ID. As I walked to the back of the car, I noticed a faint trail of something dark leading away from the vehicle. I felt sick when I realized it was blood. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the trunk latch. Taking a deep breath, I opened it. What I saw made my heart stop. Inside was a large, blood-stained tarp. I didn't need to look closer to know what it held. I stumbled back, and thoughts rushed through my head. Who could have done this? And why leave the car here? I radioed Daniel again, my voice shaking as I explained what I had found. He told me to stay put and wait for the police. As I stood there with my flashlight, minutes felt like hours. The police showed up fast. They taped off the area and started investigating. I told them everything I'd seen. When they checked the car, I saw one officer's face go pale as he lifted the tarp. Whatever was under there was worse than I thought. The rest of the night was a whirlwind of police activity, questions, and reports. The police found more blood leading into the nearby woods, suggesting the perpetrator had fled on foot. They searched the area, but found no trace of the suspect. The car was eventually towed away, and the parking lot returned to its usual empty state. In the days that followed, the story made the news. The victim was identified as a young woman who had been reported missing a week earlier. The details of her death were gruesome, and the police had no leads on the killer. The idea that someone capable of such horror had been so close to me, hiding nearby, stayed with me. Every time I patrolled the parking lot, I felt like someone was watching me. I started imagining things, hearing footsteps that weren't there. My sleep was filled with nightmares of the blood-stained tarp and the empty car. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. The memories wouldn't leave me alone. I decided to quit. The job wasn't worth the toll it was taking on my mind. I needed to leave it all behind and find a new path, one where I wasn't constantly feeling on edge. I used to enjoy working the graveyard shift at Walmart. It isn't for everyone, but I found a certain peace in the quiet hours. The store takes on a different character at night. It's just me, the other overnight crew, and the occasional customer or random drunk and other weirdos. I've been a checkout clerk here for over a decade. I've seen all kinds of people come through my lane, but nothing could have prepared me for the events of that night. It started around midnight. The store was nearly empty, and I was absent-mindedly scanning items for a young couple buying snacks when I first noticed him. He was a man in his late 30s, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans, with a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He walked up to my register with a single item, a roll of duct tape. I forced a smile and greeted him with a good evening. He didn't respond, just handed me the tape and stared at the counter. I scanned the item, bagged it, and watched as he paid in cash and left without a word. At first I thought nothing of it. People buy strange things at odd hours. But about 20 minutes later, he was back. This time he had a large kitchen knife. I felt uneasy as I scanned it, trying to keep my expression neutral. But it still didn't seem particularly alarming. After all, plenty of people buy kitchen knives at Walmart. I asked if he needed anything else, my voice slightly shaky. He shook his head, paid in cash again, and left. I watched him walk out, feeling uneasy. Something about his demeanor seemed off, but I couldn't quite pinpoint why. Over the next hour, he returned 3 more times. Each time, he bought a single item, a box of heavy-duty trash bags, a bottle of bleach, and a pair of rubber gloves. By the 4th visit, my discomfort had turned into suspicion. I decided to talk to Bobby, the night manager. I found him in the back office, sorting through inventory sheets. I explained that a customer had been coming in repeatedly and purchasing odd items like duct tape, a knife, trash bags, bleach, and gloves. The whole situation was starting to unsettle me. Bobby looked concerned and agreed it was unusual. He asked if the guy had said anything, but I told him the customer was almost silent, just paying in cash and leaving. Bobby sighed, clearly uneasy about the situation, and said he'd check the security footage. He asked me to keep an eye on the customer if he came back. I returned to my register, feeling nervous. Sure enough, about 30 minutes later, the man walked in again. This time, he headed straight for the hardware section. I watched him from a distance, feeling my anxiety build. He picked up a hammer and some nails, then made his way back to my register. As I scanned the items, I decided to ask if he was working on a project. He looked up, his eyes cold and empty, and muttered something indistinguishable. I bagged his items, my hands shaking. As he walked away, I noticed his left hand was covered in small cuts and bruises, like he'd been in a struggle. That was it for me. I called Bobby on the store intercom, asking him to meet me at the front. When he arrived, I quickly explained what I'd seen and told him that we needed to call the police because something wasn't right. Bobby hesitated for a moment, then agreed to make the call and told me to stay put and watch the entrance. Not long after, 2 police officers arrived. I told them about the man's purchases and odd behavior. They listened carefully and asked to see the security footage. As they watched the tapes, I stood nearby, feeling more anxious. The officers exchanged glances before one of them turned to me and said I was right to be concerned. They assured me they'd keep an eye out for the man and instructed me to contact them immediately if he returned. I nodded, relieved but still uneasy. The rest of the night was a jumble of nerves and anticipation. Every time the automatic doors opened, I tensed, half expecting to see the man in the hoodie. But he never came back. The next day, I still felt uneasy. I kept replaying everything in my mind, wondering if I had done enough. What if he was planning something bad and I missed my chance to stop it? A week later, I got my answer. The local news reported that a man had been arrested for a series of home invasions and assaults. The description matched the man from the store. Police found him with a bunch of tools and supplies that matched the stuff he bought that night. I felt relieved, but I couldn't help feeling uneasy. Coming face to face with something so disturbing left a mark on me. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have any feedback, feel free to leave it in the comments below. If you have a story you'd like to share or need to contact us for any reason, you'll find our email address in the video description.